What do you say, everybody? Welcome to Cover Crimson. We're going to watch the Kalen DeBoer and assistant coaches press conference. Alabama with a ton of momentum right now, but heading down the back stretch, trying to make the college football playoff, and still a very real contender to be the national champions of college football. We're going to talk all of that stuff here and watch the press conference with you guys. Like, subscribe, thumbs up. Let's go. All right, he's Clint Lamb. I'm Mick Gillispie. Clint, Alabama with a 42-13 win. That was really kind of right on the heels of a 34-0 victory over Missouri and over LSU, two ranked teams. And now all of a sudden you're wondering, and I'm wondering, has Alabama figured it out?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? Looked good against Missouri, but you say, okay, it's a top 25 team, but they're struggling. As far as injuries, a lot of inconsistencies on offense. So you kind of are having a hard time gauging, just how much Alabama has kind of righted the ship. And then you see them against LSU and just extremely impressive win. Top 15 team. We'll see where they check in the latest college football playoff rankings. But, this is easily one of the most impressive victories I've seen from Alabama in quite some time.
Yeah, look, I think so too. And the other part of it is it comes at a great time because now we're seeing what this team's capable of doing. And it's not just one side of the football. The defense has been great. You're talking about a bunch of turnovers. And now the offense, starting to click. Jalen Milroe, I thought he was hurt. Everybody talked me out of it. He just looked healthy against LSU. Could it be confidence? Could it be that, they're telling him to run the ball more? I don't know what it is other than when he runs the ball, he is tough to stop. And I got to say hi to you guys in the comments section. Pastor B, roll tide to you, brother. Smitty, roll tide, man. Thank you for being here. What up? EJ, I'll let Clint answer that question. Jersey Dolphins, good to see you. Chris, good to see you. What is up with Keon Colt? Do you know? Or
great question. I really don't have any answers, other than the fact that you can kind of gather some things, right? When you don't travel, that kind of says a lot about where you stand. I mean, obviously they're using a lot of different wolves. When the injury happened to Q Robinson, you saw Yanze Pierre get a lot more action. You're seeing Jahad Campbell playing some wolf. So, the fact that Keanu Coote is currently not in that discussion, he's not really traveling. Can't really say definitively what his status is other than, he's not traveling. He's not playing. We'll see if that changes with the development with Robinson, but we'll just kind of have to wait and see.
All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. Not everybody plays, and they've said it before. If they don't feel like you're getting it done in practice, then, you're not going to be rewarded. If you get it done in practice, they're going to find a way to get you on the football field. Doesn't mean that he's not going to be part of this team in the future. But, definitely interesting because we thought he was going to be a part of this team. We really thought that he had the potential to be a big part of the defense.
Yeah, we did. And as far as, injury update, we'll have to wait and see if we get one. I was surprised that no one really asked after the game. But typically when you get stuff after the game, you don't really get a whole lot. Obviously we got the Robinson update because we knew it was pretty bad. It was probably going to be season ending. With the rest of these guys, it's kind of just a wait and see approach. Obviously Geno Vandermark ends up coming in for Jaden Roberts. I think he plays pretty well in this game. I haven't thought that he has done a great job with the run blocking and things like that throughout the year when he's been asked to play, which Jaden Roberts has been dealing with an injury pretty much this entire season. And we were hoping the bye week would kind of give him a chance to heal up a little bit. It was unfortunate to see him have to leave the game. And we'll find out if that's more of a short-term thing or a long-term thing. Probably, I would guess that would be one of the first questions asked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I'm always surprised when we go through those press conferences and they don't ask about injuries, because that to me is like the number one thing that people want to know after a game, and coaches might tell you, they might not, but it'd be nice if somebody in there would just say, hey, what's the deal with the injuries here for these guys?
Yeah, I
Need to
mean,
get you in there, Clint.
yeah, there was a lot of them too. A lot of guys got banged up. I mean, it's a physical football game, and Alabama played a really physical game. I mean, that's one of the things that probably impressed me the most about the performance was both sides of the football really brought it from a physicality standpoint. Running backs ran hard. Offensive line was physical. Jalen Milroe was willing to run the football. He was willing to do what he needed to do to pick up a lot of yardage, have a lot of success. Defense was popping folks. Bray Hubbard doing some really physical things in the back end. Deshaun Jones has to come in for Devontae Smith, and I thought he was very physical. I thought he was also pretty good in coverage, but especially, being physical, coming up and make plays on quick passes or against the run. That's something that I think Alabama really needed with Devontae Smith going out, because that's the kind of stuff that he brings to the table. And, he performed pretty well, but just on both sides of the football, a lot of physicality, but with physicality, one of the most physical players I've ever seen, just as far as being willing to hit somebody, was Reuben Foster, and that guy stayed hurt because of, he's willing to put his body on the line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great defender too, man. One of my favorite players, Reuben Foster. Alabama is ranked 9th. Are you surprised at all? They're the highest ranked 2-loss team, Clint.
Say that again.
I said Alabama's ranked 9th. They're the highest ranked 2-loss team.
No, not at all. When you look at their schedule, I mean, Missouri's top 25, South Carolina's going to be top 25. You got Tennessee being, a loss. Vanderbilt's kind of on that cusp. Obviously, them losing to South Carolina, they're not going to be in the top 25, but they're a good football team. Georgia being, I understand they lost, but they're still probably going to be somewhere in that, 10 range, 11 range. And granted, this is in the AP poll. We don't know college football playoff rankings yet, but I would assume that Alabama is going to be in the top 10 there too.
Do you think that coaching is different this year because you can lose games? Because think about if this was last year, Alabama and Georgia would be out of it right now, pretty much. I mean, think about that, right? I mean, yeah. It'd be a year where you'd be looking and going, hey, Alabama and Georgia, Tennessee's right in the mix now, but when they lose to Georgia this weekend, they'd be out. I mean, unless you had like a 2-loss team slide in there, but this is an interesting, it would be, if you had 4 teams, this would be kind of a crazy year, but it almost feels like, like things are coached different now just because you can lose some games.
Yeah. And I don't know that the intention or it's really being coached differently. More so than just like there's this natural, like they always say, if you want to achieve anything in life, if you want to take the island, burn the boats, right? Don't give yourself any other choice. When it was, hey, you better only, you better go undefeated, or at most you better have 1 loss. Back when it was the BCS era, the teams that were competing up there at the top, that's exactly what they did. Then, it goes to a 14 playoff. You got a little bit more wiggle room. Not a whole lot, but you kind of have that guaranteed 1-loss mulligan as long as it's not too bad. And as long as you have a competitive schedule, you can still kind of work around that a little bit. Like if you're an SEC team, and then now that it's moved to the 12 team, now you can get in with 2 losses. And it's like, I don't think it's a coincidence that all of a sudden all these teams are losing 2 games. And, you look at Kalen DeBoer and what he's done, he's still got to go out there and he's got to beat Mercer. He's got to beat Oklahoma on the road, and he's got to beat Auburn. If he can do that, then the regular season schedule that we all talked about, 10-2 was kind of the sweet spot for me. It was for a lot of people. Nick Saban at Alabama had lost a couple of games a lot in recent years. It's becoming a lot more of a competitive landscape. And so I think going 10-2 in the regular season, and whether it be, getting to an SEC championship, I don't know if that will happen, but if it did, or it's just simply making the college football playoff, I think that would be absolutely huge for Kalen DeBoer in year 1.
Still waiting on the press conference to start. Here's a great question from Timothy Harris. Do you think this team has turned the corner as far as focus and discipline goes, or should we expect more ups and downs? I will answer that one because that was kind of the top of my list going in the last game. And I feel like they have. I think that the players are policing themselves now. I think after the K-Law penalty against Tennessee, that loss, I think guys like Tyler Booker are stepping up now, and they are kind of saying that we're not going to tolerate this anymore. And I think that that's a good thing. I feel like Malachi Moore has done everything and more that you could ask of a guy after what happened at Vandy. I feel like that they are there. I'd be surprised if I'm wrong, but you never know. I'd say, though, if you were asking me to put my money down, I'd put my money down on we're not going to see any more of the discipline stuff.
Yeah, and growth is not linear. Like it's not going to be perfect where it's like, okay, now you've solved this issue. It's no longer an issue. You're not going to see flags. You're not going to see undisciplined play. You're not going to see inconsistencies. Like I'm sure you'll continue to see that kind of thing moving forward. It's just improving the consistency in which you see it. Like it's improving to a point where you're limiting the amount that stuff affects you. And I think that Alabama is moving in the right direction on that front. I think they've proven it the last couple of games they've played. And it's just a matter of, you go into Baton Rouge at night, that there's a lot of reasons to not play very disciplined football. LSU's a good football team. That's another reason, but they were able to stay focused, stay disciplined, execute on both sides of the football, great game plan on both sides of the ball going in. And so you just hope that sort of thing continues, because if it can, this team, I've said it a lot since Saturday night, and I'll continue to say it, is capable of winning a national championship, not just competing for one.
Right. And I feel the same way. I think Milroe's got to run the football. I think that's a big part of it. They didn't turn the ball over last game. That's something that this team's done a nice job of for years now. He's not giving the game away. But I'll tell you, the biggest difference to me is this team takes the ball away a lot. It kind of reminds me of those, like the 2015 and 16 type teams, where they would go out there and snag a bunch of interceptions and force a lot of fumbles. And, you heard Coker on Elephant in the Room talking about how they would practice for it. That was something that if you had the ball, they were trying to rip it out of your hands constantly. And they forced a ton of turnovers in the games that they played. And that, obviously led them to SEC championships, national championships, and being a contender year after year.
Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of this entire team has been interesting, just kind of going back and forth. You've seen a lot of the ups and downs. We talked about it a lot. It's a transition period. And I think that has kind of, it's caused some, the waves are a little bit bigger as far as the highs, as far as the lows. I mean, obviously, a lot of fans going into that Georgia game, they weren't expecting to see what they saw in the first half. I don't think many fans, even the really, positive, optimistic ones, I really don't think that they were expecting what we saw on Saturday night. Now, was it perfect? No. I still think there's some things that they need to work on, but just the team coming together like it did, there's been some highs and there's been some lows this year. That's probably the lows have been, obviously losing to Vanderbilt. They've turned out to be a better team, but I think people viewing that game compared to, under Nick Saban, what happened under Nick Saban, like it seemed like the lows were a lot worse, but they've come out the other side of it. And I think they're a better football team as a result.
No doubt about it. That's the advantage you have to playing in the system that they're in right now, is that you can take some losses and, you can learn from them. It took 2 losses for this team. We saw Georgia falter. I don't feel like, and the other part of this is, I don't feel like there's a dominant team in college football. I know Ohio State lost to Oregon. I still think Ohio State's better than Oregon, but I think that both of those teams are beatable. I don't put Penn State in the elite status. I know they're up there right now. We saw Miami lose to Georgia Tech. They're in the ACC. That's not a conference that puts a lot of scares in you as far as competition goes each week. So I feel like it's a team from the SEC that's going to win the national championship. I feel like it's the best conference. And Alabama and Georgia and Texas, to me, are the 3 teams that have the best chance to win a national championship. I know Ole Miss just beat Texas. I can't imagine Lane Kiffin winning a national championship. I just don't see it. But
what do you think about Georgia and Ole Miss after that game? Like, it just to me, the fact that Carson Beck continues to play the way that he does is so fascinating to me because he's kind of reaching a point where, and granted, it's not just him. I think the offensive line is just not playing very well for Georgia right now. And you can kind of see that reflected through some of the, recruiting the last couple of years. Kirby Smart and Georgia have not recruited the offensive line quite as well as they have in years past. And I think that that's going to end up playing a major part in kind of where their program is heading. Like, they need to get that corrected. In Alabama, the job that they're doing with this current class that they have, I think is what is probably the biggest signal, in my opinion. The fact that you're continuing to get quality quarterbacks in Keelan Russell, the fact that you're continuing to recruit extremely well, I think all of that, really is going to combine to keep Alabama competitive. Because Georgia, to me, is very interesting. Like, watching the fact they really haven't been that great up front. Carson Beck has not been able to overcome that. He's not the type of quarterback that's going to really. He's got a little bit more mobility than people realize, but he's still limited in that aspect. And, I think it's just been a poor combination for Georgia. But I still think they're one of the better football teams in college football. But the limitations, to me, I think is probably going to keep them from being able to get over the top this year and win a national championship. And then, we'll have to talk about if the quote unquote Kirby Georgia dynasty's over.
All right, let's check it out. The feed a little bit late, but here we go. Let's listen to what Kane Womack and the coaches have to say, guys. Roll Tide.
They were within 5 yards of the goal line, and you guys made stops. So what would you say was the key there?
We put in a little. We tweaked some things that we were doing down there from a scheme standpoint, but I think it was just the different variations of stuff that we have already been doing. Our guys are just getting better and more comfortable at things that we're defending down in the red zone. So, red zone defense, it's not overly complicated in some of the things that we do from like what we're asking them to do scheme wise, but how you defend all the different variations of passing concepts that teams run down there, it takes a little while to kind of lean into that. And I think our guys are starting to do a nice job. And to his point before, they're playing with anticipation.
Yeah, hey coach. Just with Q Robinson's injury, just maybe what does that do to the Wolf linebacker depth, and who do you maybe look to step up in his absence?
Yeah, Q. Unfortunately, he's done a tremendous job this season, and unfortunately will not be with us for the rest of the year. That's a hard thing to go through as a player. That's certainly hard on us as a team. When you have a guy that's been so productive for us, he's a leader for us. I've been so impressed with Q. I've told you guys this before, just impressed with his level of urgency every single day, the leadership and demanding presence in terms of holding the standard that I think he really has brought to some of our younger players and some younger guys in that room. And so he'll still have to continue some of those roles, right, of being a great leader. He's just going to have to do that from an off the field role. And so we'll have to continue to step up and move on without him. I've got a lot of confidence in some of our younger players that I think have stepped up in that position already. And Quay Rousseau and Yanze Pierre is doing a really good job starting to get a little bit more out of him. And so those guys are excited for the challenge, next man up mentality. And when you look in, as the season goes on, these are the defining moments. Is do players step up in the moment when they're needed, and ultimately that will, determine our success here on the back end of the season.
And two quick follow-ups on that. We didn't see Keanu Coot, at the LSU game. And then is there an update on him? And then also, how much progress have you seen from Keeley and just kind of his move to that position?
Okay. Keon Keeley. So Keon is playing the bandit position. Actually, got in the game at the end there, is doing some really nice things. I think learning the position, he's always been a stand-up guy, right? So that's a totally different world when you're putting your hand in the dirt and you're playing all those things. But I think, there's some optimism about what he can do for us. He's just learning the position. But from a physical standpoint, from an effort standpoint, I think he's really taken steps in the right direction there. So Keanu Coat won't be with us this week. I'll let Kalen kind of address those things, but certainly the other guys in the room are ready to step up and and fill the role that will, without Q Rob being there.
What does Jihad bring to you when he's on the edge, and without Q, is that something maybe we can explore a little bit more?
Yeah, we're doing those things with Jihad already, as a pass rusher and some sub package things, and I think he's really he's such a difference maker wherever you put him on the field, and so you want to find creative ways to get him in one-on-one matchups from a pass rush standpoint. There's things that we can do from a standpoint of if we show him as a defensive end and then drop him out in coverage, right? There's different things that we can do scheme wise from that perspective. But certainly in terms of giving us pass rush, I think that is a piece of his game, and that's what to me makes him such a well-rounded player. You can play him as an inside backer, you can play him as an outside backer, as a rush edge. That dude's playing 4 different positions for us right now and is able to hold a lot of volume in terms of what we ask him to do. And so Jihad's playing at a really high level. We're going to utilize him any way we can.
Coach, you've intimated some of this, but I was curious as to the progress of the team going from day one forward. Was this a big step in a kind of a permanent step this week, or would you say it was still just part of the trend line?
Yeah, I would love to say it's a permanent step. I just don't have a crystal ball, in front of me there. I think our guys are taking steps in the right direction. I think we're trending in the right direction as a defense. I do think there are players understanding of what we're do from a scheme standpoint. I think our players fundamentally are getting better and better. Our coaches are doing a really tremendous job of just continuing to build the fundamentals within our players. And they're starting to play with a lot of offensive recognition and anticipation, And so to me, to me, the makings of a good defense are to, create enough negative plays and game changing style plays and also limit explosives at the same time. And I think we're doing that at a higher level, than where we were maybe at the beginning of the season. So.
Hey, Kane. With those players, you mentioned Quay, you mentioned Yanzi as guys that would replace Q Robinson. I'm curious what kind of example that Q Robinson has been to those younger players, whether it's even if it's the next guys up like Justin, or what kind of example has Q Robinson been in terms of on field, like this is what we expect out of a linebacker in that position?
Yeah, I think kind of going on what I've said before. I think Q holds the standard of urgency, practice habits, discipline that it takes to do that role and to play that position, because there's a lot of things that we ask that guy to do in terms of being a part of the run fit, dropping out in coverage, folding back inside, blitzing off the edge, all those different skill sets, right, that it requires. And there's also a lot mentally that those guys have to be locked into. And so I think Q's really set the standard of the urgency that you have to be disciplined to do your job in that role. But then there's also just a level of energy that he brings, and effort that he brings to practice. And it shows up on game day in terms of some of the physicality and effort that he's showing. So, those other guys, it's a great room. C-Rob does a really, really good job with those guys, and they're bought into that position, like what we do out of it, and they like their role. But, ultimately, when you have a guy that has been a really steady presence and a playmaker on defense, those other guys are going to have to step up in the moment.
You talked in your opening about keys to victory, and you do a lot of the weeks. Are those actual tangible things you come up with for the guys each week, and then are able to point to after the game of, okay, we did this and it helped us win, or we didn't do this and it contributed to a loss?
Yeah, so we started doing that years ago. I mean, there's things that we carry within the Swarm D that are kind of our identity, who we are as a defense. And then on top of that, we talk about what are the 3 things that we have to do to win this game specifically. So we talk about it as a defensive staff on Mondays, and then we present it to the players on Tuesday morning, and then we review that on Sunday of whether we hit those markers or not. Some of those things, are tangible. Things that we ask our guys to do in terms of maybe stopping the run with a certain number or third down efficiency or whatever it may be. But other things like affecting the quarterback, you can point to certain tangible things, but also did we put him in a position to where the quarterback played at a more uncomfortable level than what he normally plays? And, I thought we were able to do that this past week. And so that was going to be a critical piece of the game. And so we kind of made sure we laid that out for the players. All right. Thanks, guys. Roll Tide.
All right, Roll Tide. Heard from Kane Womack. Bad news on Robinson, out for the year.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And I liked that he was asked about, replacement options. Obviously, Quay Russaw has been kind of the main wolf when he's been healthy, but he's been banged up as well. You're starting to see more Yanze Pierre. He was asked about Keanu Coote. Didn't really, I guess we're going to hear more from Kalen DeBoer. I don't want to speculate on it too much. We'll hear what DeBoer has to say about it. But, that just leaves the depth even more thin. You got Noah Carter. That guy's, I know the coaching staff really liked him, but we haven't heard much about his progress so far. But, he's a top 100 prospect, a lot of pass rushing chops, very explosive. But Yanze Pierre and Quay Russaw are the 2 main ones, especially when, losing a guy like Robinson, that could mean that you can slide Jahad Campbell more to that wolf position and get Justin Jefferson on the field more, which is what I think this staff wants to do. 23 snaps as an edge rusher this past week. That is the second most this year for Jahad Campbell, 28 being the most back against South Carolina. So you're probably going to see more of him playing some wolf. He's got that versatility. He's getting comfortable playing a lot of different roles. But then you also see some other guys as well, including Russaw. And, I think Keon Keeley played pretty well.
Yeah. What types of pre-snap adjustments did you guys make from previous road games to help you guys out more this game?
Well, we certainly evaluated what we had done in the past and then try to just alter some of the lines of communication. There wasn't anything drastically different. We just did a better job of it.
All the way back in the room here on the right line.
For a confidence standpoint, how big was that win on the road? And what are you telling your guys about playing in a hostile environment with everyone watching?
Well, I think I don't think the confidence of the group has wavered. We just we're looking forward to another opportunity in an environment like that to play better, and so we did that. And that was I was excited for the players because I know they were itching to get back into an environment like that against a quality opponent on a big stage, and so they handled it better than we had in the past, certainly. And so I was proud of them. And we know there's a lot of work to be done still, and we know that there'll be other moments where we'll need to improve on things that we've done previously, and so that's really the focus. But I was proud of them on how they handled the environment.
Jalen didn't get sacked against LSU. I know he got flushed out of the pocket pretty quick a couple times, but considering that road environment you just mentioned, considering LSU's got a premier pass rusher with Swinson, number 4, was this the best pass pro night of the season for y'all?
Well, I think we were efficient running the football, and that kept us out of some situations, that allowed them to rush. And I certainly felt like up front, the guys did a great job, both in the run game and in the protection. There certainly was time for Jalen back there to go through reads. And I thought Jalen was very decisive in the pocket as well. He threw the ball to some checkdowns. He got the ball out of his hand. I thought the staff did a nice job collectively of putting together some plays that, allowed him to do that. And certainly the players deserve the credit for bringing that to life. So I think it was a combination of things of trying to stay out of some of those situations. I know I had mentioned that, early in the week about being efficient on first and second down, trying to stay out of some, really tough spots where, there's really no guesswork on if it's a run or a pass. And so we certainly handled that well, and having no sacks in that environment, the credit belongs to the players for their execution in those moments.
Coach, you and some of the staff made your way down to the field towards the end of the game. What was that walk like through the end zone for you?
Well, I was just trying to, the game was essentially over, and you know, the only thing that was left was us taking a knee when we got the ball back. And so just trying to get down to the people that you care about and enjoy those moments, those brief moments that you have in those type of environments. So I was just happy for the players, their families, everybody that, you know, put so much hard work, you know, into each week. And so to be able to get down there, you know, at the end, not just myself, but the other guys that are up in the box. Yeah, it was a special moment. And I was glad I was able to do it.
You guys finished 10 of 13 on third downs. How much was that staying out of those third and long situations, and also just kind of the execution of the guys on third down?
Combination, you know, certainly that was a point of emphasis over the break. You know, we had not been, we did not execute well in the previous 2 games on third down. You know, there's no surprise, no, you know, that was no secret. And so we certainly looked at it closely over the break on what we were doing, what LSU was going to present to us in those situations to try to, you know, be better. And we were. And so that was certainly a critical point in the game, or a critical factor in the game, was our ability to stay on the field and execute in third downs.
We saw Jim Miller have a really big role in pass catching. How have you seen that area of his game in the running back room's game grow from fall camp to now?
I think both him and Justice have had good moments catching the ball out of the backfield. Third downs, you know, just keeping the chains moving, you know, both of those guys. And that's certainly a factor, something that we consider in our offense, you know, the variety of routes and concepts that we want to make sure that we use each and every week. The different route tree that each, you know, group of players, wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, that we ask them to do is certainly big. And they've handled it well. I think Coach Gillespie's done a great job of coaching them up on some of those routes, and they've done a great job of you know, executing in those moments. So yeah, Jam was certainly impactful in the game. Justice has been in the past. You know, their ability to come out of the backfield and catch the football is certainly, it makes it easier for the quarterback. It makes it harder to defend for us offensively, and something that we'll always incorporate in our offense.
What do you think of the job they did settling down after the penalty on the first play there?
We did good. Yeah. Did better than the first play for sure. Yeah.
When you think about the makeup of your quarterback room, whether it's Jalen, whether it's Austin, Dylan, any of those guys, Ty, is there a commonality in terms of, you know, mental makeup, physical attributes? Is it like an intangible that all of them share?
Yeah. Well, intangibles wouldn't be anything physical, right? You know, so I think character, who they are as people. They have great families. Their parents have raised them the right way. And I think they're mentally tough. So those would be commonalities amongst all those guys. And I think at this level, that would be pretty standard across, you know, the highest level of football, is guys that have great character, you know, they're built the right way and that are mentally tough.
The Russian attack paid off pretty early in the game against LSU. What did you see in their defense that you knew could limit them?
Well, I think each week you're trying to identify what you need to do to win the game. And certainly the last few weeks, that has been a priority for us, you know, based on who we have, is a commitment to running the football. You know, and it's not always going to work out that way. You know, you have to look at who you're playing, both from a schematic standpoint and from a personnel standpoint. And then you try to put your players in the best position to be successful. You know, I think weather was a factor as well. You know, we were mindful of what the forecast was going to be and what the game might turn out to be. And so you factor in a lot of different things as you're preparing for a game. And then you have to adjust in game based on how they're defending you and what's working and what's not. And so, you know, some of the plays that we were able to execute, the players did a great job of making the right plays at the right time. You know, I thought we blocked well. And so that usually, you know, puts you in a position to be able to run the football effectively. I thought the guys that ran the football ran hard and tough. I thought the tight ends blocked well. You know, I thought we did a nice job. And certainly when you can control the line of scrimmage and run the ball effectively and efficiently, that's always a good formula, particularly when you're on the road.
Hey, Nick, we've heard Tyler Booker praised as a leader all season, but how have you kind of seen him maybe evolve as one, whether it's just for the offensive line unit or just a leader for the offense as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I can't credit him enough. I think he's been fantastic. he's obviously an exceptional football player, but his leadership throughout the course of this season has been outstanding. And we're going to continue to lean on him in that regard. I think he's become more and more comfortable, probably holding people accountable, challenging people. We've made a concerted effort to let him know that, we have his back in that way. Everybody in the program respects Tyler Booker. And so when he sees something that's not up to par, he has, the authority to make sure that he holds people accountable. And I think that's what great leaders do. And he is that. There's no doubt about it. He's obviously an exceptional football player, but his influence on our team and our side of the football, not just with the offensive line, but all the positions, has been exceptional. And, we expect that to continue.
Coach, in post game, Jalen said that you coached him really hard to do what the play asks of him. In what ways did you see that on the field, and what was your approach in preparing him for the LSU game?
Well, we're just, not specific to him, but all the players, we want them to execute things a certain way. Sometimes you can have production and yet you didn't do it the right way. And sometimes when that happens, your consistency over time is not what you want it to be. And so there's a right way to do things fundamentally, reads, footwork. If you're a blocker, hat placement, leverage, you name it, there's a right way to do it so that you can get repeated and consistent results. And so that certainly was a message to the players that, just because you had production doesn't mean that you did it right. And the longer you play, when you go against good teams, your fundamentals, your technique, the simple execution always shows up. And so we were better. We did a better job. But the things that have happened this past week will have no impact on the game this Saturday. And so our ability to have the right week of preparation, the right mindset, the right work ethic, so that you can continue to improve. Your best game should be your next game if you have the right mindset, the right work ethic. And that's the message to the guys to do it right all the time. And so that you have the best results that you possibly can have when those moments show up. Okay. Thanks, Roll Tide.
All right, there you go. Coach Sheridan, not the not the talker of Kane Womack or Coach DeBoer. Like some of those questions, the answers made me laugh. They were so simple.
Well, I mean, sometimes with us as media, we tend to do this where you present a question that should have a pretty obvious answer, and you say it in a way where you hope they kind of run with it and they just take it, but they don't always do that.
Right. Well, here's Coach DeBoer.
Yeah, you bet. Good morning. And just with it being Veterans Day, I just do want to say a quick thank you to those that have served, those that continue to serve, give us the freedoms that we have. So appreciate all the veterans. And then I think the next thing, just with injuries, I think Kane maybe alluded to it, but with Q's injury, it's certainly determined now that he'll be out for the remainder of the year. Unfortunately, just a special person in every way. You hate to see a guy who pours so much into it, go through what he's going through. And he just, the one thing when I think about Q, it's not just what he does in the field, but pre-practice, he is mentoring, doing things for other guys. And, it's just, he cares so much about the team. He cares so much about just this place. And that's just something that sticks out on top of what you see on game days. And so just a great person. He's poured a lot into this place. And then just, I think recapping LSU, just proud of the way the guys prepared, proud of the way that they started, the confidence that they showed early on led to the production, led to us playing our most complete game, offense, defense, special teams, always areas that we can continue to improve. Probably the biggest thing that I saw is just our kickoff team, which has been rock solid on top of it all season long. One of the best in the country. Put them up against anyone. Just having some times where we lapsed there, and a couple new looks that we needed to adjust better and quickly to. So just that was one area where we need to be better. But moving forward to Mercer, extremely high quality football team. And, us handling success coming off of a game or games that we've had here, it's important for us to do the right things as far as knowing no points carry over from last week. Nothing as far as our stops carry over. We've got a team that's coming in 9-1, very confident team, pretty much lead their league in every, or not every, but most statistical categories on both sides of the ball. And so just, want to make sure we continue to do what we've been doing to take the steps in moving forward as a football program.
Yeah, Coach Kane kind of alluded to it, but Keanu Coot wasn't with you guys last week, and he kind of said he wouldn't be here this week. Do you have an update just where his status stands?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he wasn't with us, and he's suspended right now, and so not gonna get into length or anything like that, but he won't be with us this weekend.
Yeah, Kalen, what types of, I guess, pre-snap adjustments did you guys make from previous road games for this game, specifically with making sure that clean snap, timing is right, making sure noise didn't affect things?
We did a little bit with just the procedure, a little bit of adjustment on just communication there. But it's stuff that it's just, we had done it that way. We've done it both ways, different places I've been. Feel good about both procedures. We just did adjust and tweak it just a small amount. I think probably as much as anything, it's the number of reps we got, and just this being the second time really after the Tennessee game, and then also having a bye week and just really honing in on it and be dialed, and helps when you make plays too, and there was less plays where we had as much noise, and so the percentages were more in our favor as far as just the execution piece. But our guys just did a better job handling it from start to finish.
So if this comparison is a reach, then feel free to shoot it down. But 2 years ago, your first season at Washington, you won a huge game against Oregon. It was a November road game, just like LSU. You had 2 losses at the time, just like LSU. You win that game and you hit the streak where you don't lose again until the CFP this past January. Was that Oregon game a catalyst for the culture you were trying to build there? And can this LSU win be similar that way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So our experiences that we have individually, right, we always remember them and the learning moments that you go through. For our team, they weren't through that. But for me, just, you do take in those times, whether it's that season or 10 years ago. There's just things you go through that were part of the process then, that you try to remember and try to figure out what worked and what didn't, to keep the team moving in the right direction. And honestly, it's really simple. You got momentum to build off of. You make sure you take advantage of it, and then you also continue to just keep the pedal down, keep focused on what you believe in. And we've been doing that, and we were doing that then that year, and we're doing that now. Just stay in the course, and just because all of a sudden you kind of feel like you get over a hump doesn't mean you can just let off, because it's about the next play. The next one's the most important one, and that's good. That's been our focus really since day one. It's just that now the execution, the number of reps, all of those things are helping us execute better. And so, questions probably, Nick was just up here, how were we able to, be more productive? Well, our execution is better. We weren't behind the chains. And so the playbook's more available to you. It's a lot easier to call plays. And so just all those things, those experiences that you're referring to, yeah, I'm certainly aware of those, and it feels a lot like that. But it doesn't guarantee, right? It doesn't guarantee us anything. We got to keep moving forward, build on the momentum that we have right now at this point of the year.
What development have you seen from the backup quarterbacks in your unit, Ty and Dylan and Austin, this season working behind Jalen?
Yeah, good question. Because you don't see them. We get to see them, and this is what I'll tell you: that the work that they are putting in, there's guys throwing on, I guess yesterday would have been Sunday, right? Because I can envision walking outside for a second and seeing one of the guys out there throwing at 9 a.m. in the morning, doing his thing, and others just really paying attention in the meetings and coming up and meeting individually with Mitch Dowling, with our offensive staff, Coach Sheridan, myself, just a lot of opportunities that they're all taking advantage of to help their growth. And then they get on the football field. You see familiarity with the offense, especially those, Austin had a little bit more familiarity, but then you also see growth in fundamental things. Guys that are helping out with scout team. I know last week I talked about Austin being heavily involved in the scout team. Just you see the throws, the accuracy of the throws. You just taking advantage of every rep, and these guys are doing that. And this season isn't just something that's about Jalen and like, oh, I hope I get my time. They're pressing forward and using the resources we have, and then also putting forth the effort to improve anytime that they can.
Coach, you mentioned in the open that it's important how success is handled at this point in the season. What is your standard for how that success is handled with your players, but also your staff?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be the same no matter what time of the year. It's all about the next play, the next play, and then obviously for us now the next game. We talked about handling success before. We've won games earlier in the season and talked about handling success, and I still felt like the effort and everything poured into the right things was happening then too. But I also think that now we've been tested, we've been through adversity. We're a little more, we've been through the battles together, and I think we understand better who we are, but we also understand better, what we can do. And, we're honing in on what our strengths are. We're continuing to really focus on the weaknesses and areas that people maybe perceive as ways to get after us on both sides of the ball. And so, I think that's the whole key, is handling success is one thing, but our just continual development and growth and improvement. That's a big deal for us right now. And that's what's happened over the last 3 or 4 weeks, is that's finally coming to fruition. You can see it in practice, and unfortunately there's been times where you don't see it in a game. Now you saw it in a game in a lot of different ways.
Coach, some of the reporters here covered Coach Saban in the past, and the players had Coach Saban as their coach. How do you handle a success like that? The social media, everyone's saying Alabama's back after a must-win game, and kind of telling them to stay the course, kind of like what Emily Grace was saying.
Yeah, I think we've I don't want to say we learned a lesson, but we understand that doesn't matter, right? And we understand that it's all about building on what we did do last week, because it was significant. Just like we would learn from the areas that we're falling short on a game we've lost, but it's all about just staying with the process, staying with the preparation. I want the guys to keep an edge, because I think there is a little bit of an edge, a little bit of I don't want to say chip on their shoulder. I think edge is the better word to use that we have. A little bit of backs to the wall, kind of fighting for your life at times, that I think exists. And I think every guy has a little different way of where they're driven to go out there and put forth the best effort in practice, bring the best energy that they have. What I've really challenged the guys with is to have more and more leaders stepping up. I think I've said that in here a few weeks back, is that our young guys aren't young guys anymore. Our transfers, they're not transfers anymore. We are a full team, and we need every guy, because there's starters that now, we were just referred to Q. There's starters that aren't with us, aren't able to be on the football field due to injury. More and more guys got to step up, yes, on Saturdays, but more and more just need to step up as leaders. And the more leaders we can have that, first of all, take care of their business and bring then others that can bring the rest of the team with them. There's a lot of influence on our football team in a good way, and you can see it and feel it on the practice field, and that's where it all starts.
Kind of on that note, how did Devontae Smith come out of Saturday, and what did you see from Deshaun Jones filling in to his place?
Yeah, no, good question. With Deshaun, he's been just right there, ready to go. We've moved him around a little bit with positions, just because he's a very versatile player, and he's got game experience. with his past and coming in, just kind of learning things and being ready to go. I'm really proud of him for that. So I'm excited about his growth that he's had and the opportunities he's taken advantage of, like he did on Saturday. With Devontae, that would be something I think just throughout the week we'll continue to manage and kind of see where he's at. I haven't heard the update today, but I think he'll be fine as the week continues on.
Opposite side here. Let's go to Colin.
Hey, Kalen, kind of going off of a couple questions, but I mean, LSU isn't traditionally a game where you get to see kind of younger players, second string. The game had been decided at that point, but to have guys like Richard Young or Ty or guys that usually may not get to experience Tiger Stadium until they have to, until the job is theirs. What was it like to, I guess, see those guys in those roles, those younger guys, both on offense and defense, kind of be able to go up to that?
Yeah, you're happy for them because they work extremely hard. Those guys, as we said, quarterbacks are working extra, putting extra time in. Getting our running backs, you alluded to with Rich, getting out there on the football field. All these guys that work extremely hard, getting a chance to go out there, be rewarded. That's what it's all about. And we're a team, and it's not just the 11 guys that are out there starting on each side of the ball. So I'm happy for them, and glad that we executed well enough to where we were in that spot to where those guys get a chance to go out and perform. And when they get their moment, they're taking advantage of it. They've done it a number of times throughout the year.
We've got time for a couple more questions, starting with Jack here.
Hey, Kalen, you talk about leadership. Obviously, Tyler Booker's gotten a lot of praise in that regard. How big has he been? And when you think back to when you first arrived, how big was he at that time, just to have some stabilization with the players as you kind of got settled in?
Yeah, there's been a number of leaders on our team that have really, since day one, been critical for us. And the questions about Book, I can't give him enough praise. And I can say this because I know he handles it and he can handle it well. And it's not something that goes to his head. He is so passionate about this place. He's so passionate about being the best he can be. He's got a resiliency, I think, and just, that has helped us as a team also have that, level of response to adversity that's been positive. He just keeps pushing. He's got respect amongst his teammates at the highest level. From a leadership standpoint, he's vocal, but obviously leads by example all at the same time. And the combination, he might be one of the best leaders I've ever been around. And so I know that's saying a lot because I've been around a lot of really good ones. And, when you put those guys in that category, he's really special. And it's because he takes care of his business, 100% of the time. And he's pushing others to make sure that they're their best too. And I think that's what great leaders do, is they bring the best out of everyone else around them.
All right, we'll finish up here on the back.
You've now had a blowout and a shutout over ranked opponents. What does that mean in terms of making a statement?
Yeah, I like the progress we've had, and every week's a new challenge in different ways. Last week, just, with the passing game and kind of the way that we felt we knew they would attack us, rising to the challenge, was big. And the shutout the week before happened as a combination of stopping both the run and the pass, different quarterbacks in and out. But that's progress. Like, there's steps forward. There's confidence that continues to build, a trust that happens between the front and the back halves. I really like the demeanor that they bring, and it all starts with what their demeanor is going to be tomorrow morning, Tuesday, when we step on the football field. That's really the demeanor that you want, and that we've had, that needs to continue for us to do the same thing this Saturday that we did last Saturday. And so, again, when that mindset's where it needs to be and the work's done each and every day, that trust, that belief, it just continues to build. And you can see that with our defense.
All right,
Thank you. Roll Tide.
All right, there you go. Kalen DeBoer's press conference. He always does a fantastic job. Clint, I just think he's easy guy to like. And it sounds like Alabama's kind of, talking about the thing that I talked about was, can they handle success? And that to me is the next box that this team needs to check.
Yeah, I think they're in a better position to do it now than they were, because leaders are being established. And it's not just being established. It's like they're finding their role within the team, within this locker room, with this coaching staff, and all those things as the season progresses. And just, it's something where what I loved about what he said about Tyler Booker was that he knew he could compliment him and it not go to his head, it not affect him, not affect, the work ethic or anything like that. But it's not just Tyler Booker. I think they're getting leadership on both sides of the football. I think Jahad Campbell is becoming more vocal and confident in his role as a leader of this team. Deontay Lawson's clearly been one. Malachi Moore's continued to be one. But other guys are starting to get their footing on this front as well, and guys are buying in. And that doesn't mean that it's going to continue necessarily. You got to continue to put in the work, each and every day. Like, they got to go out for practice and prepare for Mercer like they were preparing for LSU last week. Like, Mercer's an underrated football team given the level in which they play. So that's something that I think fans need to be weary of going into this weekend. And it's something that Alabama, whether it be players, coaches, everybody else, need to be wary of, certainly as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's that. And after the Vanderbilt game, Mercer comes to town 9-1, and you're going, okay, we got to take them seriously, and I know they lost to not Stanford, but Samford from Alabama. But you know what? You got to take, and Coach Saban was so big on that. And maybe maybe looking back now, we were kind of like, maybe he was a little bit ridiculous with that stuff. I mean, these would be the weeks where he would, go ahead and say, hey, what are we playing the game for? You guys already have us winning. I mean, how many times did he say that? And then you lose to Vanderbilt and you're like, you know what? I'd love to hear somebody say that. And it felt like Coach DeBoer, in his own way, was kind of saying that today.
I mean, I just want you to think about the question, because it crossed my mind, and it's going to happen. But I know everybody's so over like the stop bringing up Nick Saban, stop making the comparisons. But just as somebody who paid so much attention to how the media asked their questions for so long, really the entire time, since the time I've gotten in this business, and really long before that too. But, the question about you just shut out a top 25 team in Missouri. You just handled on the road another top 25 team in LSU. Like, what does that say about your team? Imagine someone asking Nick Saban that, like this, hey, I want you to reflect on the fact that you just kicked the mess out of two top 25 teams. What does that mean to you? He would have lost it and been like, to be honest with you, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. It's next game. It's whatever. He'd be immediately pivoting and talking about stuff that needs to get fixed. Something about Kalen DeBoer's ability to acknowledge the success that they have while also looking forward, I think is it's a different look. I understand why Nick Saban handled the things the way that he did, but I think Kalen DeBoer's got a very good feel for being able to stop and appreciate what's going on in the moment, while also, understanding how that's supposed to look moving forward, how, you can't let these things kind of get out of hand and all that stuff as well. So I think it's I wouldn't say it's a refreshing change. I mean, obviously, the way Nick Saban did things obviously worked, but from sometimes you just want to appreciate, like, fans want to appreciate Saturday. It was such a special win, given the adversity of this team and everything. And so knowing that, the coaches and players are enjoying it, obviously, I'm sure they've moved on by now, but like seeing Nick Sheridan come down from the booth early, some people thought that was a little bit too much. I liked it. Go celebrate with your players, go celebrate with your coaches. I had no problem with it.
What do you think about Q Robinson being out? How's this going to affect the team? I know you kind of talked about maybe moving some guys around, Campbell kind of maybe switches a little bit, but and then also we found out the answer, and Colt suspended.
Yeah, that's kind of that's unfortunate for the depth. I think obviously, Quay Russaw is the guy He was the starter. Robinson's leadership and his situational abilities. I mean, he could handle some drive-to-drive stuff. You know, I thought he had improved on early downs, and he could certainly play, you know, that shallow off-ball linebacker role like the Wolves has to do sometimes. I thought he was getting much better at that. But, you know, Russaw has been the most complete player Alabama has had at that position. And then situationally, being able to move Campbell around, I think, is really critical for this team moving forward, because I'd already mentioned before, you know, a couple of weeks ago, it had felt like that Jefferson had beaten out Coot for snaps. And a lot of people were looking at that and say, well, you're talking about a Wolf or an outside linebacker compared to an off-ball linebacker like Jefferson. But because of Campbell's versatility, you know, they were in direct competition, Jefferson and Coot, for snaps. And the coaching staff really, they view Jefferson as a starter. He's played, you know, for a majority of this year. We've seen his role increase in recent weeks. And I think that you will probably see, at least situationally, Campbell playing out on the edge a lot more with Jefferson getting some snaps, because, you know, in those obvious passing situations, Jefferson's a guy that you want on the field with his DB-like athleticism. And so, you know, really, I think in his last 4 games, Campbell has 3.5 sacks. And he had half a sack through the first, 5 games. So he's really started to step up. He had 4 pressures on Saturday. That tied a season high for him. I think he's had 10 over his last 4 games. So he's winning out there on the edge, and he's winning against some pretty good players. So, you know, I would expect that to continue. I would expect Russaw, you know, he seems to be getting healthier. And then Yanze Pierre, that's a guy that the coaching staff has liked since the preseason, really since they've arrived on campus. But really in the preseason, you know, in fall camp and all that, you really started to hear some buzz about Yanze and maybe getting an increased role. We saw it against, you know, Wisconsin. He played quite a bit, did some good things both on early downs and later downs. And now you're starting to see him, you know, get some opportunities due to injury and obviously the suspension to Coot.
Guys, I want to ask you to like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Hit the bell here when you hang out with us on Cover Crimson and the Cover Crimson YouTube channel. Clint, you're working on a lot of stuff over at covercrimson.com. I was on the message board yesterday and a little bit this morning. Lots to talk about, man. I mean, this is the stretch run, and it's a lot of fun to get on there and kind of just stay in touch with everybody.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal way. You know, a lot of great conversations. You know, obviously we're going to be doing some recruiting stuff later this week. You know, the Caleb Cunningham situation, you know, there's been some projections that maybe he could be flipping to Ole Miss. We'll have to wait and see how that turns out. But, you know, Alabama's recruiting is in a really strong place right now. And one thing I'll say about the Cunningham situation, you know, obviously pulling in that kind of talent, I mean, anytime you can get that caliber of player, you want to do it. But if there's one position that you can really trust Jamarcus Shepard and Kalen DeBoer as far as development, because you look at a lot of the first round talent that they had at Washington, it really wasn't these all-star players necessarily. I think they had one guy that was like a borderline top 100 player, but all these 5-stars and stuff, that was just, you know, Rome Odunze, you know, he was not, wasn't as highly recruited as you would think, given the fact that he ended up being a top 10 pick. That was more so development. Alabama's got a lot of really good receivers. And I'm sure Cunningham, you know, watching this offense and the way it's progressing, I'm sure he wants to be a part of that. But we're going to be talking about recruiting over on the message board this week for sure. We're, you know, getting close to the first signing period, the early signing period. And then also, you know, I know it's Mercer week, but a lot of snap count observations coming both on offense and defense from this LSU game. I'm going to be looking more at some trends that I've been taking some notes on in recent weeks as far as where I think certain guys and their roles are going to be trending towards the end of the year. We'll touch on that a little bit in some of these future videos, you know, later this week. But for now, a lot of that stuff's going to live over on the message board. So if you haven't already, go sign up.
And don't forget, too, that our channel is presented by mybookie.ag. And you can go to mybookie.ag right now. And look, Bama is going to be a big favorite. I last time I looked, this game wasn't even on the board yet.
Probably won't be.
Yeah, I mean, like that's one of those name your score games. But you can go on there right now, and yeah, it's still not up there. You can go up there right now and play Bama basketball, which by the way is number 2 in the country You can do NBA basketball, NFL football. I mean, there's a ton of stuff going on right now at mybookie.ag. So take advantage of that.
Mick, real quick, early predictions. I want to say that Tennessee is a double-digit underdog going on the road to Athens to play Georgia after the way Georgia just looked against Ole Miss. Now, granted, that was on the road, and a lot of people they look at Georgia like they did Alabama under Nick Saban, where it was like, okay, you're not going to get two rough performances in a row, but double-digit dog for the Vols. Which way are you leaning? I know it's only Monday, but which way are you leaning on that?
I'm going to tell you this, Clint. I'm going to tell you a story, and then I'm going to tell you how it relates to this. Bama played at LSU, and not this time, but last time. And I just still see that one fan, that idiot that was like taunting our players and coaches. He looked like he had a lot to drink, and he probably scraped together every dollar he had to be on in the game, and then acted like a complete idiot on the field, right? So when Alabama went there and whooped their ass this time, I thought they deserved it, and I enjoyed every minute of it because I thought, man, you guys had it coming. I kind of feel like Tennessee's in that same category right now, and Georgia's going to be the team to whoop them. I just got a feeling it's going to be a lot to a little in this game. Georgia's going to crush them. I know that Georgia has problems, right? Georgia's problems are they don't have enough playmakers. They don't have a Ryan Williams. They don't have a Jalen Milroe running. So they're kind of they've got to do it on defense. They get behind, and they're not that good of a football team on the road. But at home, they're tough. Their defense is really good when they move the ball. They're one of the best teams in the country. And Tennessee's just kind of gotten by. They caught a break against us. They got some calls right. We made a lot of mistakes. We didn't run Milroe nearly enough in that game. And I just feel like Tennessee's been skating by, and I think that's all going to end on Saturday. I think I think it's going to be a country whooping.
You think it's going to be okay? So you're even laying the points.
It's 9 on ESPN, and I'm going to mybookie.ag. I'm taking Georgia and the points. I think Georgia's going to exact some frustration on Tennessee. They have problems moving the ball. They got a really good defense, and I just think that Georgia's going to take advantage of. I think Georgia's going to score a lot, and Tennessee's going to fall behind. And then I got a feeling that Georgia's going to be desperate in this game, and I think they're going to take care of business.
Backs against the wall. I like it.
All right. Hey, guys, thanks for hanging out with us, as always, here on Cover Crimson. We got Elephant in the Room coming up. We've got the All-American Report coming up this week. We got, obviously Bama and Bourbon coming up. The Process, all of our shows here. We appreciate you guys watching them, and continue to support what we're doing, because you guys have made this channel a lot. It's given us a lot of momentum, and we appreciate it a lot. So thanks for hanging out with us. And roll tide, everybody.